wife started out this morning letting me know how humid it was, and I let her know there was more news in the future because we were going to see some of those gusty conditions followed by some thunderstorms, and then we're going to hold on to some of that wind. So I'm in hot water right now, but not for too much longer because the colder temperatures are definitely on their way. Get a good look at this temperature change over the last 24 hours, leveling out in those 70s last night, then jumping up into those 90s today under that cloud cover. Then as soon as those winds picked up and those thunderstorms pushed through, we dropped a good 20 degrees. And then we're fighting back and forth as we start to cool off uniformly right now in those 60s. Looking at the temperatures right now, everybody across the entire Concho Valley hanging out in those 60s, 67 right now in San Angelo. Everybody else joining us in those mid to lower 60s. Look at how much we've cooled off from those 70s, 80s, and 90s earlier today. Everybody's hanging out in those 60s. We're only a couple degrees apart, if not only 3 right now between Menard and Junction, probably the cooler spots. Of course, Sterling City up there 65 as well, and then we're looking at how much we've dried off right now. Everybody hanging out in those 20s and those 30s near those freezing points, but of course we're not going to see any of those conditions tonight, especially any of those fog, which we have our eyes peeled out for, but we're still holding on to some of that humidity and moisture down to the southeast. It's quickly pushing its way off towards the east as these storms continue to explode across the rest of the entire country. Right now, the upper level pattern is going to outline where the severe weather is going to continue to really just take off, and we're watching this cold air really sink down from the north in 2 different areas off the west coast and the east coast. This is going to force this ridging and keep us in those pleasant 80s well into next week, whereas we make our way closer to the solar eclipse, we're going to see if we don't see some thunderstorm activity and those temperatures really just continuously hang out in those 80s and maybe see some of the return of that humidity. Right now, the blues are letting us know where the most severe weather is going to push off, while the browns are going to let us know where the cold air is going to sink in, kind of stabilize everything across the entire United States for a little while, give everybody a break. Really, it's just been this entire region all day, parts of East Texas along the border of Oklahoma, well into Missouri, and then taking off into Illinois. And when we look across it, it's just been alerts all day. These are tornado warnings, tornado watches, flash flood warnings, tornado warnings, and then we're looking at where they're taking off near parts of eastern Texas. They really started here in the Concho Valley along Tom Green County earlier today, and they're continuing to push off to the east, and we're waiting for the reports of any of these tornadoes, a lot of the hail, how much precipitation they've really seen as a result of it. Storm chasers are all over this part right now. Now, as we make our way into the evening, the winds are what I'm more concerned about, where we're going to see a lot of these stable conditions push in. Again, we're talking about that cold air sinking in right behind it. That's going to push us back down into the 60s tomorrow, if not those lower 70s, and that's where we're going to hang out for a couple days. By about Wednesday, we're going to see those temperatures kind of rally back into those upper 70s. So tonight, we're going to drop down into those 50s, only down a couple more degrees. Of course, we're looking at those westerly winds and a little bit of that humidity still lingering around, but we're holding on to the wind because tomorrow's definitely going to be a clear day, but a windy day as we get only up into those 60s, if not those 70s. Remember, we're fighting to get pretty warm right now as we continue to make our way towards summer and this eclipse. Now, we make our way towards the middle of the week. We're pushing back up into the 80s. Remember that ridging we're talking about? It's going to be pretty prominent as we start to see some of these more pleasant conditions, definitely feeling like spring. Great for the first week of April, if you don't mind me saying. And then as we make our way towards the eclipse, we have a good opportunity for some strong rain chances to make their way in. Remember that low pressure off the west coast obviously making its way in to replace what's happening right now, while those lows are in those 40s, making their way up into the 50s. Stay tuned. More at the break. You're watching KSAN News at 10.